All right, welcome to my series where I talk about stocks. My name is Andy Finance. Hopefully, you're going to find something mildly interesting about me and not boring you to death. Let's talk about our first piece of news today. Donald Trump announcing that the deal with Iran is now complete. He now authorizes toll-free opening of the Strait of Hormuz and simultaneously authorizing the immediate removal of the United States Navy. The oil markets immediately responded. Boom, it was at $84 and it dropped instantly down to 81 and now it's kind of stabilized around $80. Um yeah. Other than that, he's been just kind of making tweets about random stuff on top of that. But anyways, if we look at SpaceX stock here, we can see that it was up 20% today nearly. And in the after hours, this is up another 2.5%. This is kind of crazy. um, yeah, since IPO, it's up 20%. My opinion of SpaceX is that I would still be cautious of it. Reason is that right now at IPO, he only floated 5% of the shares. And of that, 40% is allocated to retail. So the other, approximately. So approximately 60% of that 5% is to hedge funds. And the other 40% is left to us people, individual shareholders, to be able to trade, which of, let's say, $80 billion, that's 32 billion trading with retail. So 32 billion of a 2.5 trillion dollar market cap. I would stay cautious. So, of that 2.5 trillion, if we were to do the math, like only like it's such a small percentage, like 0.08 divided by 2.52, or sorry, zero point 0.8 divided by 2.52, which comes out to 31%. No, sorry, 0.08. So 0.08 divided by 2.52. So roughly 3.17% is really floating right now. If Elon decides tomorrow to dump all his shares, the stock could vertically down. One thing you'll know is that a lot of people who are invested in this stock have a vesting period. So we'll see how that plays out, whether or not it's going to be able to maintain once it gets included into the NASDAQ 100 and other indexes. You look at Reddit and people are saying everyone wants this stock to collapse, so it's probably why it's keep going up. I kind of agree. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, dude, this stock's gonna drop. And this guy said he sold. Thank me later. Boom. Which means that if you sell, it only goes up. 30 days. This guy says 30 days. Nasdaq buys in, and once the lockup window starts, it will free fall. I'm thinking the exact same thing. Like once the lockup windows start opening, yeah, it's gonna start dropping in my opinion. I don't know if we're gonna be able to maintain because the amount of float is just fake float. It's like, let's say you issue like 1,000 shares and you get one person to buy it for $1,000, but the other 999 you can't really even sell it because no one's gonna buy it. So you can be like, well, one person bought my share for $1,000, which means my company's worth 1,000,000. Because if you do 1,000 times 1,000, it's worth 1,000,000, right? Yeah, no, that's not how that works. It's actually funny that this YouTuber did this, and the UK government told him that he was gonna get arrested for fraud, so he closed down his company. I forgot who that was, but it was a funny YouTube video. And if you just scroll into Reddit, you see everyone posting about their gains, like 85% of all time. People holding all tech stocks, people losing. You know, we're in quite a bull market where people are just ready to throw money at anything and everything that they are willing to see that gets like any sort of wind, bad tailwind into it. Um, yeah, if we keep scrolling down here, I'm seeing a lot of talk about this ADITXT. What like this is just a penny stock, a market cap of 13.36k, $13,000 in total. There's no way. Yeah, you can see that they've done like lots of reverse splits here. They were worth 2.8 trillion dollars per share back in August of 2020. I wonder how that's going for them. That's kind of funny. I think that's like their whole market cap. No. This is ridiculous. These guys on the Nasdaq. Wow, these guys are gonna get delisted for sure. Their 52-week high was 54,000, and now it's trading at 0.013. I don't know. This feels like a lot of bots are just like pumping up these stocks. Like 40k shares deep into the stock. Oh my gosh. But yeah, what you're seeing in the market nowadays is that you're seeing a lot of bullish movement. People are buying stock when they shouldn't be going all in. You're seeing people buy freaking options out the wazoo. My opinion is that we should stay cautious, especially when you see things like this. Soxel, the semiconductor bull. If you look up their holdings, Soxel holds Micron, AMD, Marvell, Broadcom, Intel. And Intel, interesting stock. I was like looking at it ramp up today. It's interesting that it's down after hours, but if we look at like the 6 month, they were going for $36 and now they're at like 127. A $642 billion company. It wasn't that long ago where if you just divide that by 3, they were worth $214 billion company. It's still a far cry to what Nvidia is worth, $5 trillion. But I don't know if this run up on Intel is going to be able to hold. In my opinion, I think this is just a little bit of a pump. What we saw over the weekend here was that upon market close on Friday, once SpaceX IPO'd, I think we were seeing a little bit of pressure on the administration because of the SpaceX IPO to be able to pump the market a little bit into the Monday. So coming into today, I think the administration had a little bit of an incentive to be able to push the market. I think this was the real reason behind the deal. I don't think the deal is actually going to be a lasting deal. If we look at the terms of it, we see that it was only for 30 days, a temporary ceasefire that included Lebanon. So I think this is going to be a little bit fickle here because the ceasefire is also under the premise that Iran clears out the landmines or sea mines so that the ships can start moving. And that takes a little bit of time. We have to wait till the insurance underwriters are going to be allowing these ships to get underwritten so that they can move across the strait. It's not even about opening the strait anymore. It's about, is insurance even going to cover it? Are these companies willing to even take their cargo and just move across? I don't know. I think it's going to take more than just like a 30-day ceasefire in order for them to be able to get their underwriters to underwrite the ships to go across the Strait of Hormuz. I think what we're going to see here is that we're going to see a little bit of a cat and mouse game. I'm not going to be surprised if the U.S. comes in and starts underwriting all those ships because without that oil moving, I don't think the inflation is going to be stuck up. And it's going to be really hard for the Federal Reserve and the FOMC to be able to drop the rates. So I think we're going to be seeing a little bit of an incentive here for the administration to go into Hormuz and start underwriting these ships that are moving across the strait. Other than that, I think going into the end of this week, I think we're going to see a little bit of a run up here. The S&P is going to probably keep the momentum going as long as nothing happens on the world stage. Yeah, today the stock market was up 2%. Year to date it's up 25. It's pretty ridiculous gains for a single day. That's like quite a sizable portion for a single day movement. As we can see in the past 5 days, the S&P was only up 1.54 and 2.12 for the past month. Most of these gains really happened between March and this really start of the month. Before then we were seeing like huge stagnation. Like in fact, we were losing money if you were investing at the start of 2025 till basically a March. So there was a really good half year there where, well, not half year, but 3 months where we were seeing stocks just basically stay stagnant and go down. And all of a sudden now we're in a bull run here. I think this bull run is going to keep going for as long as this administration wants it to keep going. If they want to keep pumping the stocks, it'll keep pumping. If the FOMC and the Federal Reserve increase interest rates, I think we're going to see a lot of downwind effects, especially since we're seeing private credit do payment in kind, PIKs. And essentially with payment in kinds is that whenever there's an interest charge and the company can't make that interest charge, instead of it being in default, you can do what's called a payment in kind where it defers the payment. So basically you're stacking interest on top of interest and it's considered income for these companies or these ETFs and whatever, these private equity companies, and they're putting it on their balance sheets and they're paying out dividends on income that they haven't actually made. I think we're going to see a lot of downstream problems that come about because the Federal Reserve, if they increase interest rates, we're going to be going into a pretty big downfall here because, a lot of things are relying on private credit to be able to keep pumping up the economy here. And once you start seeing like the S&P pull back a little bit here, you might see margin requirements go up from 30 to 40% and cause a pretty sizable sell-off. So you can even see it in the Korean economy right now that a lot of people are taking out margin to buy into like these big tech companies right now, especially these DRAM companies. So I think we should be watching out for that. Another thing that I was seeing today was this ETF called SPCL. This one's also been on my radar here for a little bit, but I've been thinking about investing myself into SPCL. It's mostly just holding SpaceX in and of itself, but I think it's going to be better to diversify. I'm going to be looking into this one, seeing how worth it is going to be to buy this stock. But yeah, overall, I think today has been a crazy run up. I think we should be cautious but optimistic. But heading into the midterms here, I think we're going to be seeing a big blowout. And with that blowout, I think we got to watch out for the interest rates to, I mean, the Federal Reserve Chair is going to be more than welcome to be able, they're going to be open to putting up the interest rates. And then I think we're going to start seeing a big pullback there once we start seeing those defaults come through. Because right now it's kind of just been an extend and pretend situation. You can't pay, just push it back. We've been seeing that with credit cards lately and the amount of consumer debt that we're seeing. A lot of this has been not, I don't know if we're in a bubble, but it's definitely inflated. So, yeah, those are my opinions.